We're thrilled to have my colleague, Robert Fischman, who goes by Bob, here with us tonight as our featured speaker. Bob and I go way back, actually, to when I formed a consulting group for clean energy in New York and networked a lot through Columbia University. I think, Bob, you had spoke there, or you attended an event and we made contact, which was great. So I've always wanted to do a project with him. I have a fierce loyalty and respect for his work. Bob is a sustainability management professional who provides leadership to innovative organizations who are seeking to implement environmentally responsible and economically sound solutions. He's a trusted source with a deep understanding of sustainability policies for addressing climate issues. He has extensive experience leading clean energy programs, one of which is PACE financing, which is kind of the standard financial model and program for commercial lending for clean energy projects in the state of New York. He's adept in energy project finance development, metrics for carbon accounting and emissions reporting, energy markets, materials management and recycling, resiliency strategies, environmental, water, and land use policies, and low carbon transportation systems, and climate science. So Bob is very knowledgeable and has directed more than $500 million worth of capital building programs and 36 major projects in the United States, Europe, and Latin America. So without further ado, Bob, I would love to have you share real fast. Before you do, I want to give just a few highlighted clean energy incentives that we're looking forward to implementing with our customers in 2021. There's been thanks to Congress a few weeks ago, there's been a 2-year extension on the federal tax credit of 26%. So you can take that 26% off of your total project cost. There's been a dedicated $35 billion budget, according to Congress, for the new administration in energy research and development. There's a new federal tax credit for EV vehicles of up to $7,500. There's also state incentives. I know the state of Vermont has a $4,000 incentive for all leased and new EV vehicles. And then commercially in New York and residentially in New York, there's a megawatt block structure, which offers a direct upfront rebate for commercial and residential solar systems. So Bob, I will let Nat make you host, and if you can just take us on in, that would be great.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Karen, it's a pleasure to be invited, and I'm more than happy to share what background I have and some thoughts on where we're heading in 2021 and beyond as we go forward with a new clean energy outlook. So I've prepared a little bit of a presentation. I'll kind of walk through that, and then I guess after that we'll open up the floor to questions, and look forward to hearing from people. So with that, I'm going to share my screen.
Great.
And here we go. And okay. I guess we go back to the beginning here. Okay. Forgive me, we went through. Okay. So the thought is to look for where we are going forward. Karen, as you mentioned, I do sustainability management work through my consulting arm called Sustainable Promise. And Sustainable Promise was formed a few years back with the goal of helping business owners take advantage of the kinds of strategies that we had put together in the Westchester County Climate Action Plan, which was done on behalf of the county back in 2007, 2008. So we've helped quite a few businesses get engaged and find ways to make their own businesses operate more sustainably. So kind of overall, what is the issue? Well, in Greta Thunberg's words, it's pretty simple. Everything else that we're seeing around here these days is kind of noise, and we will eventually get through those things. But the big issue is climate change. And what drives climate change? It's something called the greenhouse effect. And I'm going to borrow from some slides that Al Gore, through the Climate Reality Project, has created. And so the greenhouse effect really talks about how solar energy enters the atmosphere and how that energy can affect the temperature on the planet. The sun actually provides enough energy each hour to provide all the energy needs for this planet for the course of a year. That energy comes to our planet in the form of light waves as it passes through the atmosphere, and that energy is absorbed by the Earth, and the Earth is warmed by that, both the land and the seas, and then that energy is then reflected back outward from the surface of the Earth in the form of infrared waves, and much of that is passing through the atmosphere back out into outer space, but some of it is absorbed by what are called greenhouse gases, principally carbon dioxide, which is at the top of the atmosphere, and that also warms our atmosphere, and that's a good thing. But when the level of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere shifts and we start to see more of that, then we start trapping that heat within the atmosphere, and that continues to warm our planet. And quite frankly, there are issues associated with that, and we'll go into that. So the issue is the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the cause, per 99.9 scientists around this planet, that cause is man-made. And just to put this in context, if you were to go back 100 years, a century ago in the pre-industrial age, you'd see that we had approximately a concentration in the atmosphere of about 1 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. Well, in 2019, we were 10 times that level. And the driver of that is unquestionably, man-made. It's due to the types of things that we do with fossil fuels. So what's the consequence of this? Well, the result of all this is that within the last 2 decades, since the beginning of this century, we've seen 19 of the 20 hottest years on record. And the consequence of that, as we've seen, are floods and droughts, the forest fires that we've seen raging across California, in Australia, and you may not know this, but actually up above the Arctic Circle. We've had forest fires burning above the Arctic Circle, of all places. Rising sea levels, and there are consequences to rising sea levels. Of course, much of the world's population lives near the coasts, in urban areas, and roughly about 70% of the world's population live in coastal cities. So that's going to result in climate refugee issues, and we're already seeing a great deal of that. Disease is a certain outcome from climate change, and we start to see ourselves impinging on natural habitat, and many people are pointing to that impingement on natural habitat as the source of a great many tropical diseases, such as Zika, moving around the planet. and even the current pandemic is a result of how we've pushed into the natural habitat of animal life. There are certainly economic costs to this. If you just look at the exposure for example, New York and Miami to coastal cities on the East Coast, you're looking at about $5.5 trillion of risk, of exposed risk, of assets that are, in danger of rising sea levels. So we need to do something about this, and there are ways to fix this, or at least to try to fix it. There are lots of innovative ideas, carbon capture and storage, taking the emissions as they're generated and putting them back into the planet. And one of the more enticing ideas is basically kind of going back to basics, and that's regenerative agriculture. There is a lot of potential there. And in an area like Vermont, where we see a lot of organic farming happening in upstate New York, that's a great first step towards that. Electric vehicles, another fabulous new innovation. And at this point in time, there are 49 manufacturers across the globe that are making electric vehicles now. These are not prototypes, these are vehicles that are actually in production and going onto the roads as we speak now. So where are we in terms of renewable energy? Well, we've got about 650 gigawatts each of wind and solar installed worldwide, and a target to bring up energy storage to 1,000 gigawatt level by the year 2040. Where are we with energy efficiency? Well, we're seeing 70% market penetration in, for example, just LEDs, whereas if you went back 10 years ago, it was next to nothing, maybe 5% if that. So we've seen opportunities through new technologies to extend the chance to improve on energy efficiency. Heat pumps, cold climate air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, otherwise known as geothermal. The next frontier, we're going to be seeing a lot of that coming, and there's a lot of policy being initiated to help that. And all that, LEDs, heat pumps, wind and solar, all this goes under the category of what's commonly called beneficial electrification of buildings. The idea that we're moving away from the burning of fossil fuels to providing an all-electric, clean electric method of heating and cooling our buildings. But having said that, we don't want to be wasting energy. We want to be able to use the right amount of energy and not have it go out the window. So we need to look at improving building envelopes, and that's something that's actually a very exciting sector, and I'm going to speak a fair amount more about that. I'm based here in New York State, and I've done a lot of work, as Karen mentioned, through New York State's energy sector. So I just want to touch base on what some of the goals are. In your neighboring state, here in New York, we have a target to achieve 70% renewables by 2030, and all this is part of the what's called the CLCPA. I'll botch that. So, but it is an act. It is the. It's basically, its shorthand is the Climate Act in New York State. So all this is codified as policy goals that the state must achieve. 70% renewables by 2030. We're going to hit 6,000 megawatts of solar by 2025. Wind power, the offshore wind industry is expected to hit 9,000 megawatts by the year 2035. And that's already underway. 1,700 megawatts is already contracted at this point. And that's going to tackle something like 1 million homes in New York State. Energy storage is key to managing how power is used and generated, and when it can be used. And we're targeting 3,000 megawatts by 2030. Overall, the goal is to hit a carbon-free electricity market by the year 2040, with a goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions across New York State by 85% in the year 2050 against 1990 levels. So how do we pay for all this? Well, we now need to look at policy. And a lot of things are moving along. We've had great policies here in New York State. I'm very happy to report that, that there's been a lot of success on that. I think you're going to start to see a lot more happening at the federal level as well. And Karen mentioned some of the tax credits that have already been extended just in the last couple of weeks. So the structures include rebates, which in New York State are issued by NYSERDA for newer, more advanced technology, or the newer technologies that need better market penetration. And rebates are also being given by utility companies for some of the technologies that are already maturing, such as heat pumps and lighting systems and things such as that. Another interesting model that's happening here in New York State and elsewhere around the country is the idea of creating a beneficial rate structure for things such as heat pumps. So that
Bob, sorry to interrupt,
yeah, sure.
but I think there are people that have been trying to get in. I had sent a link around through some private messages on LinkedIn. So if you can just check the chat room real fast, sorry, and we can continue on. Sorry about that.
Let me see how I get to that.
Participants, and then hit admit.
Participants 14.
And in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, or if this is sparking any topic or case study or project you're working on, please contribute in the chat. This is obviously we're giving Bob the floor here, but we would looking forward to a lively discussion shortly, and welcome your participation if you have anything.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody waiting in the.
Okay, no problem. We'll get them in the end, or I'll send them the recording.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I guess I'm just not seeing anybody in the under participants. Let me see under more, perhaps.
Let's just get back to it. Bob.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, all right. So, fiscal policy or beneficial rate structure is creating an advantaged utility rate for people who are adopting heat pumps, as an example. Fiscal policy, we have investment tax credits that you spoke about. Advantage depreciation is another one where you're able to take full depreciation in year one for for clean energy initiatives that you put on your commercial property. And of course, individuals are able to see tax credits for things like ground source heat pumps and solar. On the financing side, market rate financing is starting to put a lot more weight on environmental social governance, risk factors. Groups like Fannie Mae and HUD have green mortgage products, and PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy, has proven to be a remarkable tool. So PACE is an opportunity for a commercial or nonprofit property owner to finance a clean energy upgrade that could be renewables or energy efficiency, on an assessment on their property that is that actually runs with the property. So if the property is sold, the financing moves along with the property. And one of the great advantages of this is that you can finance out to the weighted life of the improvements that you're undertaking. So if you're, for example, putting on a solar installation that's got a 25-year lifespan, or similarly, geothermal system, you can finance that over that extended period, and the energy savings will invariably outweigh what you're paying in financing. And that, again, that financing runs with the property. So if the property owner has in mind that they may need to or wish to sell the property before the end of the financing term, unlike a mortgage or other commercial debt that's taken on the property, the financing runs with the property and is not paid off, and the ensuing property owner sees the advantages of that ongoing energy savings, and of course continues to pay in a net cash flow positive manner. So I want to talk, and I know we only have a couple of moments, so I'm going to touch on this pretty quickly. New York has a program called Retrofit NY. It is modeled after something that was developed in Europe going back about 8 years now, called Energy Sprong. It's a Dutch program, which Energy Sprong stands for energy, translates to energy leap. And the idea is to take multifamily buildings and have them turned into net zero homes virtually overnight. And this is done through a prefabrication approach. So it's not done on site. In New York State alone, my research has shown that we've got about 2.2 million apartment units, apartment dwelling units in New York State. Roughly 660,000 of those are publicly owned or subsidized otherwise. And my research shows that this translates to about an $87 billion industry opportunity in New York State alone. The Rocky Mountain Institute is doing something similar in their work with the state of California, and the Department of Energy has gotten into the game as well. They've taken a look at this opportunity, and they've done some considerable research and are poised now to start rolling out a program nationwide to subsidize this. What is the issue? Well, it's the idea is, how do you make people aware of this opportunity? How do we get to passive house? How do we get to net zero? What is Energy Sprong about? What is this Retrofit New York program? It's hard to understand until you build the awareness in the marketplace. Contractors just continue to see profits, so why would they change? And so there are issues associated with changing a business model, but it is a profitable business model. It's been shown in Europe. They've done some 10,000 units already, and it's done without any disruption to tenants. The concern that we've had here in the States is that when we go out to a building site and we want to make something more energy efficient, it's all done with stick-built construction at the job site, and that's disruptive to people. It's slow, it's all challenging. What the Energy Sprong model has done is they're using technology called BIM technology, where they come out and use laser measurement on the building. They take images of that. They go back to the factory. They can create computer-generated drawings. They generate from that. They manufacture prefabricated building envelope that's super insulated with windows and doors and everything integrated. They come out to the job site. They do a little bit of preparation on the exterior of the building, and then they deliver a new exterior facade and roof and mechanical systems to the building, and that's all installed, in as short as a day to as long as a week at the most, without any real disruption to people on the inside of the home. It's basically sandwiching a new facade around the existing building, a new roof structure over the top that has solar built into it. These things generally have pods on the outside for integrated heat pump systems and inverters for the solar systems, heat pump, hot water heaters. Everything's all set, ready to go. It's popped onto the exterior of the building, and then we take it from there. And
Bob, I'm going to cut you off if you want to scroll through your slides while I'm
that's
talking.
it.
But no, thank you. I wish we had more time. We purposely keep these these events as briefs because we know everybody's been had quite long days being online with working from home right now. But so much information, a lot to learn. We have some great questions that have formed in the chat. And so I'm going to let Nathan, if he can answer. One of them came from John West. And it was asking, what New York State likely to require a national grid to pay for electricity generated by individuals' PV systems rather than only providing a credit? Not quite sure how to answer that. Nathan, maybe you can, or Bob, maybe you can as well.
Yeah, Nathan, you want to take a crack, or
you can go ahead. You probably know New York State better than I do, so if you want to take a crack at that, then please feel free.
All right. Well, I'll take a shot at it. I think what you're going to see is that what happens, first of all, national grid territory will be the same across the state, with the possible exception of PSEG on Long Island. But basically, all this is run through the NYSERDA's New York Sun program, and the policy that is established for them through the Public Service Commission is going to be uniform. It's basically net metering at this point in time for individual projects. Of course, when you start to look at the way these things are priced out, there's something called VDER, or the value of distributed energy resources, which puts literal dollar values on everything from the energy to the social benefits and the time of use, I should say the time of generation of power. And that is the way the state will calculate the energy generation. For example, a community solar project has a number of excellent community and social benefits and environmental benefits, and that's able to generate revenue for the solar developer.
Okay. Bob, sorry. Have to cut off again. We had a question come in from Louise Guido about how does this affect, I believe, single family residences. And I know, Bob, you focused on commercial, but also this relates to a few other people here on this call. So I think she was relating it to what you were saying, maybe even regarding to retrofits. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So the
assistance.
Okay, so the Retrofit New York program is targeted specifically at low to moderate income housing at this point in time. So there are some very sizable incentives to helping the LMI multifamily sector get to net zero.
Is there a resource link or where we could direct everyone to find out more information?
Absolutely. You're going to head into the, just basically Google Retrofit NY, and that's going to take you to NYSERDA's Retrofit New York site. The goal eventually is to build a market, not just in New York State, but across North America, to generate this kind of industry that will be applicable not just to the multifamily sector, but to commercial buildings and single family homes, all of the above. And
then I see two questions from Representative Mike Yantaka. In developing net metering projects, does New York run into grid restraints? I know Vermont does.
Mike, thanks for the question. Yeah, New York certainly has areas of congestion on the grid. And that's where this whole VDER or value of distributed energy resources calculator comes in. It's basically looking at the areas of constraint and trying to incentivize the kinds of projects that will generate electricity, clean electricity in the areas that are otherwise constrained, so that so that the market incentive structure is targeted to the areas where there are more market constraints.
And then there was one other question from Representative Yantaka. What are the revenue sources for housing retrofit assistance? What are the revenue sources?
In New York State, most of this is handled at this point through NYSERDA for energy efficiency. There are certain elements that can be tackled by the utility companies, such as retrofitting lighting, or perhaps putting in low flow restrictors for shower heads and faucet aerators and things like that that conserve the type of energy that goes into making hot water, as an example. And so those, New York is a little bit unique in that it has these two parallel groups that provide incentives: NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research Development Authority, and the utility companies, public utilities. But all these incentive structures are overseen by the state's Public Service Commission. Great,
thank you so much. Sorry we ran a few minutes over. I know we started a few minutes late as well. But I'm going to stay on for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions they didn't get to ask or comments, I want to thank Yangbo, if you want to chime in at all, for contributing the articles and your research. I know Yangbo from New York Energy Week and his work with the UN and elsewhere. So, but yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you need to take off, feel free. And thank you for joining us. We'll try and post, if we can, Bob, your presentation on our Facebook page and LinkedIn if we can. Otherwise, we'll post some resource links for you all and the documents that were shared. So.
Thank you. And my contact information